Hello, this is Gary Dye again. This is my third and final campaign video for my run at US Rep District 3 Oregon. I just want to do a little bit of cleanup here, tell you a little bit more about how I was fired for whistleblowing at Northwest Natural, and a few other things in general about libertarianism and what's going on with our country right now. Um, yeah, I I reported internally 24 ethical violations to the ethical team at Northwest Natural, which consisted with corporate lawyers, of course. And yeah, again, they came back and said, nothing wrong here, no problems, no business practices were violated, or no laws or regulations were broken. See you later, bye bye bye. Um, so after that, I decided to talk to the union steward of the Blue Heron paper mill that went bankrupt and 170 people lost their jobs. And I talked to him and I sent him some files backing up my claim about how they were lied to and they were overbilled by a significant amount of money, which might have caused them to go bankrupt. And this guy heard this stuff and he wrote me an email saying, "Hey, I took this to our attorney, and he took it and sent it to Senator Jeff Merkley's office, um, and nothing became of that, nothing at all." Also, I took the matter of Northwest Natural withholding $35,000 from the bankruptcy court. I took that to the bankruptcy judge. I told him, right? That's illegal. You can't do that. And never heard back from him either. So, it was like 2 or 3 months later. Um, I was sitting in my family room and a courier delivered a box of my stuff. They cleaned out my office and my desk and sent it to me. That was nice. And then there was a letter. I still have that letter. Maybe I'll have to publish it. But it was a letter from this director who was a former engineer. I worked with him a little bit here and there. And it was a really poorly written letter. I can't believe they wrote this. But basically, the guy says, "Yeah, I understand that you don't agree with some of the things we've done here. However, you did two things that are against company policy, which was to share information by private email, uh, and that I talked business with someone outside of the company that was outside of uh, my line of work." And basically, what that was is that I was sure that the company was monitoring my emails and monitoring my computer. So I sent the union steward files through my personal Hotmail account, right? And the thing is, all the managers in the company were already doing that, um, via their phones, at least, and other methods too. Uh, so they shouldn't have held that against me. And the other thing was, that they said I shouldn't have talked to the union steward, but that's not true either, because I was telling him about the uh, the measurement inaccuracies that were created by the BTU system and that they were overpaying by 7%, and that's what caused them to go bankrupt. That was completely within uh, my line of work, which was all things measurement. So, yeah, that went down, and I was fired for whistleblowing. Okay. Now, here's the thing. Um, Regarding the BTU zones, you know, toward the end of my career there, I was sending out these nasty emails about that, such that upper management, executives, vice presidents, directors would see exactly what was going on. It was in an email. They can't erase those emails, right? Smoking gun. They saw this. Um, and, there was this young and upcoming engineer who had just been promoted to supervisor who was taking over something involving these BTU stuff. Uh, and he called a meeting with a whole bunch of engineers and managers about this very subject. And he didn't invite me. He didn't invite the measurement guy. He didn't invite the guy that had this proposed way of allocating correct BTUs on a daily basis. You know, that I was working with an engineer and had him come up with this modeling system, Stoner modeling, a modeling system that produced this map of the BTUs that would be performed daily. That's what I wanted them to do. That was what I was advocating for. But obviously, I was being kicked out of the company. So they didn't invite me. I found out about this meeting and I saw all the people on that list of attendees. And I asked, why aren't I involved? Why didn't you invite me to this meeting? Huh? That was like 2 or 3 days before I was escorted off the company's property. But the thing is, guess what? So he went behind my back to do this. He was told to do this. He was told to sacrifice this guy. He was told that if you do this, if you sacrifice this guy, right, uh, you'll prove yourself to be a company man, and you'll get good ratings, and you'll work your way up to the company, through the company. And that's exactly what happened. He's now vice president. Okay. And what I also discovered 2 or 3 years ago, I also discovered that they did implement my BTU system, my Stoner modeling system. That's exactly what they did, you know? And he put his name on it. He took credit for my idea. He took credit for my work that I was advocating for like 10 years, taking a lot of hits from management, my boss, you know, all those years, I was advocating for this system. They shut me out. They implemented it after I was fired, and he took credit for it. What a dirty person that guy is. Uh, and the other thing is, the letter of termination that I received was written by this fellow engineer that I'd worked with, you know, and he's vice president too. So that's the kind of the way it works. That's the kind of the way it works, right? If you show you're a company man and do all these dirty things to people, to your customers that make the company money, you're going to get promoted, right? You're going to get rewarded for doing that kind of stuff, right? Those are the people they reward: crooked people, dirty people, cheating people. They're the ones that get rewarded. They're the ones that become vice president. People like me, honest engineers that are trying to do their job, trying to keep the company ethical, trying to warn the company when they're not being ethical, right? People like me get terminated and lose their jobs and lose their careers. That's the way it works. That's the way it works for a corrupt company, and that's the way it works in a corrupt society. Because here's what's going on in general. If you've ever called up customer service about something, saying, "Hey, this thing broke. I want my money back," or whatever, right? You'll talk to these people, or now they're stationed in Philippines, right? And they'll deny. They'll deny on the phone, right? You'll get cheated, and there's no documentation of a phone call, right? That's not documented. By email or something, that could be documented, right? And you could take that as a complaint, file it with the Consumer Product Safety Commission or the CFPB or whatever you want to do, right? But when it's a phone call, you can't. So the thing is, I've many times I've done this, and the person on the other end of the line, they know that I'm being honest. They know that their company is not being honest, that their company is going to cheat me. They know all this, but what are they going to do? They have to do what their boss tells them to do, and their boss has told them is to deny everything, keep the money within the company, right? So they can't deny what their boss wants them to do, and that is to basically cheat the customer. And if they don't, they'll either lose their job, or they won't get a raise, or they won't get a promotion, or they'll have a bad review or something, right? And they don't want to do that. They want this job. They need this job to feed their family and everything. So they're going to do exactly what their boss tells them to do, even though they know it's wrong. That's what everybody's doing. Okay. Now, so that person's boss, what is he doing? He's taking directions from his boss too. And that goes all the way up the line to the CEO. That's what happens. That's called the 1%. The 1% are CEOs and directors of charities and senators and people in government, people in everywhere. It's the very top that sets the morality, that sets the policies. And what everybody's doing is setting these policies. They're telling their vice presidents, you must do this. It's wrong. The vice president knows it's wrong, but the vice president knows that if he doesn't carry out his orders, he'll be fired. He won't get a promotion to be CEO. He won't get as good a raise. He won't get as good a bonus, whatever. So he does it. He does it even though he knows it's wrong. And so he's telling his directors, he's giving orders to his directors. They know it's wrong too, right? And so on and so forth. These wrongful orders are passed all the way down to the front line until that poor frontline person has to do bad things that are hurting people, and they know it. That's what's going on in our country. That's what happened at Northwest Natural, right? These political appointees, the former uh, college roommate of the governor of Oregon, who was a rapist, who raped underage girls, while he was I think he was I'm not sure if he was a mayor of Portland or he was a um, a what do they call it? The councilman of Portland. Um, you know, he appointed his friends at Northwest Natural. He appointed his director of communications of his last campaign as CEO of Northwest Natural, right? Those people are crooked. They want to make money. They were appointed there so they can make a whole bunch of money before they retired. They wanted to get a whole bunch of money for themselves, right? That was the whole deal. And so they would pass down all these orders, which basically everyone in the company knew, all the managers knew that you need to do this, that, and the other thing, to make the most profit, which might even include cheating their customers on the bill. That's what happened. That's what happened in Northwest Natural. It's happening in government too. Some of these frontline government people that are handling this, that, and the other benefit, right? They also cheat people. They deny people, right? They deny people because that's what their boss tells them to do. They know it's wrong, but they've got to do it anyway to keep their job and feed their families. That's going on across the entire country. And it's just an ugly, ugly thing. And finally, related to this is the Second Amendment. And what I say about that is that if you notice during the pandemic, the government shut down churches and they shut down the ability to protest against the government, right? And you're not supposed to be able to do that. The government is not supposed to do that. We have the First Amendment against that. And yet, officials in the government, state government, federal government, they violated the First Amendment and shut these things down. Okay. So that was going on. It was national news, various places. So, did these militias come out to protect these people? No, they didn't. These Second Amendment people with their guns, did they come out and start fighting this tyranny that the government was performing on churches and other people that were protesting the government? No, it didn't happen. And why not? It's because every one of the individuals of the so-called militia, every one of them said, I'm not going to sacrifice my life. I'm not going to risk my life and my family's life because of this. I'm not going to do it. I'll let someone else do it. I'll let my buddies do it. Anyone but me. And that's what they all said. And therefore, nobody showed up. Nobody showed up to protect these people. That's why I think that's why I think these militias, it's a myth. There's not going to be militia coming out to fight government tyranny in the future. If our government turns totalitarian and starts marching off people to the gas chambers, no, I don't think it's going to happen. I think it's a myth. So, if you're depending upon a militia group to protect you when the KGB knocks on your door, think again. That's not going to happen. And this is why we've got to make sure that a totalitarian government doesn't take over in the first place, right? That's your only protection. Militias are not going to protect you at all. Okay, now, you know, like it's the 1%. It's the 1% that's doing all this. The people at the very top are giving these bad orders to people. And by the chain of command, it filters down to everybody. And that's why companies and governments and charities and you know media, art people, they're all doing bad and evil things because of the chain of command. because of the people at the very top are giving these orders, and you've got to follow them, or else you'll be fired and you'll lose your job. That's what's going on today. And well, who are these people? Well, they're they oh they're who they always been, right? Captains of industry. However, what it used to be is that they used to be Republicans because, Republicans supposedly believed in the free market. The Republicans supposedly believed in corporations and all the things that they were doing to help the economy, to make the economy thrive, which is there's a lot of truth to that, of course, right? But what happened 10 years ago is that most of the corporations, they turned, they switched their allegiance to the Democratic Party because the Democratic Party has turned totalitarian. And, these people, they're very high up, they're very rich, the super wealthy of this country. And of course, the stockholders are the more super wealthy that put these CEOs in place to do a lot of their dirty work, right? There has always been this war amongst the super elite of this country. There's been two schools of thought. One of those schools of thought, well, actually, it's like this. When you have when you're worth a couple of $100 million, or a couple of $1 billion, or maybe even a couple $100 billion, if you got that much money, you've got it made for the rest of your life, and you've got it made for your families and your descendants forever, right? For example, you got $200 million and you put it in the stock market, and basically it's going to be making 10% a year. Some more, some less, right? But 10% a year. 10% of $200 million is $20 million. You're not going to spend even close to $20 million in a year. So what happens? That money is reinvested, and it grows and grows and grows and grows, right? You've got it made. All you got to do is take your wealth and spread it out into 30 different companies in 30 different areas, and you've got it made forever for your family forever, right? What is going to disrupt that? The only thing that's going to disrupt that is a revolution. Is a revolution of people that say, "Hey, I don't like this. I don't like that these wealthy people have all this money and I don't have any." That's what's happened over the last couple hundred years, right? Revolution. The super wealthy elites are incredibly afraid of revolution because it's the only thing that's going to disrupt their great wealth for themselves and their families and their families forever. So that's what they're so paranoid about, is preventing a revolution. Now there's two thoughts about this. How do you prevent a revolution? One school of thought says, well, what we've got to do is do some kind of income balancing, right? We need to basically give money to the poor, subsidize the poor such that they're not so poor that they form and follow a revolutionary that overthrows the government and takes the money away from wealthy people. So that's what they want to do. The other school of thought is the free market people. The free market people says, hey, free markets create wealth. That's what they do. It's the best way of creating wealth. And they point to America as, the freest market the world has ever seen. It's not free anymore, but and that's created huge wealth and it created the middle class. That's the way you do it. So you had these two competing classes of people. Basically, it was the liberals versus the conservatives. Liberals, want to control the economy and basically subsidize poor people. Conservatives wanted a free market, which would generate a whole bunch more wealth, and that's what would bring people out of poverty. So those are the two competing ways to prevent a revolution such that the super wealthy elites can keep their wealth forever, right? So basically what happened 10 years ago is that the school of government subsidy won, or at least the elites that were running our corporations and everything else said, no, we're going to do it this way. We're going to subsidize and promote a totalitarian government. Because if this totalitarian government is friendly to our industry, to our corporation, right? If they do that, then that keeps that we keep our money, we keep our wealth, and that government is going to put down any revolution that's going to overthrow us because we're the friends of the totalitarians. So that's what's happened. The the CEOs have left the Republican Party. The wealthy people have left the Republican Party, and now they're on the side of the Democratic Party. That basically happened with Donald Trump, right? Donald Trump was this populist guy. He was advocating for working class people. He was advocating for working people. He wasn't advocating for trickle down economics anymore, you know, where, if you do everything to make corporations rich and their stock prices go up, well, that's good enough and that trickles down. Well, that hasn't been happening. Hasn't been happening, right? So that's what's going on today. The Democratic Party is totalitarian, and the Republican Party kind of, sort of seems to be conservative, but it's becoming more and more libertarian every day, which is what I want. Because libertarians are the exact opposite of totalitarians. Libertarians are going to be fighting the totalitarians, right? That's what I want to do. Okay, let's see here. Glass, okay, I want to talk about what's going on today with Northwest Natural. Um, Northwest Natural went to a statistical method of determining which meters are bad and need to be pulled from the field and replaced. I developed this incredible spreadsheet that makes all these calculations and determines which meters stay in the field and which meters need to be pulled. It's an incredible spreadsheet, absolutely incredible. It's so incredible that uh, whatever the engineer or whatever who took over from me when I was fired, he doesn't understand it. He knows how to run the spreadsheet, but he doesn't understand it. Every year, Northwest Natural has to file this report that gives the status of each and every one of its groups of meters, class of meters. There's like 400 classes of meters, and they have to file a report, on their accuracy. That is the exact report that I used to produce from this spreadsheet. You print out a certain page of this spreadsheet. That's the report, and that's exactly what's being filed today, right? The thing is, after I was terminated, they realized that there were these two kinds of meters from the American Meter Company, based in Nebraska, and the Census Meter Company. I'm not sure. I think they're based in Illinois. Um, they put out these meters, and they found out 5 years later that they were going bad early. They were overbilling early, and they need to be removed from the field very, very early, right? And my spreadsheet had a prediction, uh, 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 it had a prediction column which would give a prediction on how long it will be until meters need to be pulled because they're no longer accurate and they're overbilling by basically 2%. Uh, so with that, it shows, because I can grab these spreadsheets and this data every year, that 250,000 meters need to be pulled from the field out of a total of 750,000 meters. A third of a third of the gas meters that are on houses need to be replaced. And that is a huge number. It is completely overwhelming the staff of Northwest Natural to do this. Now, unfortunately, though, there's a clause with the Oregon Public Utility Commission which says, hey, if the number of meters need to be pulled per year is over this certain number, you can leave them on the house for like up to 4 years. And that is what Northwest Natural has chosen to do. So for up to 4 years, these meters are going to be overbilling families. And my calculation suggests that families are going to be overpaying $180 because of this disaster. $180 per meter per family. And these are residential meters, they're on the sides of houses. And that's wrong. And here's what else is wrong, right? So when they finally take this meter off the house and replace it with a good meter, they have to take it to the meter shop to be tested to see how much it has been overbilling. So then so you say, oh, okay, well, then they're going to get their money back. That's great, right? But the rules say they only have to pay back 6 months and not 4 years. So the gas company is making a huge amount of money off of this problem, right? It's completely legal. Now, here's the other thing. Just before I was terminated at Northwest Natural, I came up with this fantastic, innovative idea, and it's called the calibration factor. And what I did is you can go through the statistics and be able to apply a calibration factor such that these errant meters are not errant anymore. They're calibrated back to being 100% accurate. Very easy to do, right? And I proposed this. And my boss at the time, he thought it was a good idea too. But I got fired and I became a pariah, and therefore they decided not to do it. But here's the other thing. Northwest Natural is guaranteed a 10.5% return on any kind of a capital project. And this, it's not their fault that these meters were defective coming from the factories, right? It's not Northwest Natural's fault that that happened, but they have to replace them. So Northwest Natural is able to raise the rate to recover the cost of replacing all these meters, plus they get 10.5% return on that. So this becomes a profitable venture for Northwest Natural to replace these 250,000 meters at an expense of $50 million. Ratepayers are going to be paying $50 million to replace all these meters when they don't have to. When all the company has to do is put in the calibration factor as I proposed it, as I wrote a memo to the Oregon Public Utility Commission about this, right? But they're not doing it. And I reported on this to the OPUC a year and 2 years ago. I told them exactly about the calibration factor that I filed for 10 years earlier, you know, and this would easily make it that you wouldn't have to replace these meters and you wouldn't have to charge their customers all this amount of money, and it would make the meters more accurate. It would make them as if they were new meters, 100% accurate, and it would make it so that you would never have to replace a meter again because of its being inaccurate. The calibration factor solves all that. It is a huge, huge thing, right? But because of corruption, the OPUC isn't forcing Northwest Natural to adopt the calibration factor. Corruption. And here's the other thing. These meters are all over the country. All over the country, they got these meters that are failing. They're failing early, right? And they're overbilling people. And basically, since Northwest Natural has 1% of the gas use across the country, this is a $5 billion problem. A $5 billion problem of having to replace all these meters across the country that you don't have to if you use the calibration factor. You know, that is my greatest idea I ever came up with as an engineer, and they're not going to use it. They're not going to use it to save all these people all this money because of corruption. How do you think that makes me feel? How do you think it makes me feel when I sent this story also to all of these reporters, this distribution list of reporters across the entire state and TV stations? I sent them this story about how Oregonians are going to be paying $50 million for something they don't need to, and that families are going to be overpaying $180. Huh? I didn't get one reply. Again, I didn't get one reply because the publishers of all these newspapers and the TV stations said, no, you're not going to report on this. We need advertising of Northwest Natural. And, you know, the corruption in the North, in the Oregon, amongst all these officials, helping out Northwest Natural back and forth, right? They want Northwest Natural to get this money. They want the people that have been placed in power to make all this money. You know, that's what's important to them. The people are not important to them. It's a terrible, terrible thing. It's a terrible world we live in, folks. When these kinds of things happen. Um, so I want to get off of that. I want to say two more things. Two more things about libertarianism. I was getting in some arguments. Well, first of all, yeah, I was getting in some arguments with libertarians 4 years ago when I was still in the Libertarian Party, running for United States Senate. And basically, I said this. I said, "Are you a national libertarian? Or are you an international libertarian?" And the reason I said that was basically because of the border um, and immigration. because international libertarians, they don't care about United States or Americans in general, right? They only care about humanity and humanity's libertarian being libertarian. So, when people flow across the border and get jobs and improve their lives, they don't want government to interfere with that. They don't like government force. They don't like it when government keeps people out of the country by force, right? Now, the national libertarians are different. National libertarians believe in the country. They believe, as I do, that this world is divided into nation states, and Americans here have rules and stuff that they believe makes this country work better, work best. Basically, what we used to believe in is free markets, freedom of speech, and all this other kind of stuff. We believe in the individual and not the government, right? That's what America has stood for. And that has propelled us to be the number one nation in the world, right? And therefore, libertarians here should be caring about Americans first and foremost, over the interests of everybody else. Libertarianism for Americans. That's the way American politicians, American libertarians should be concerned with, right? Americans. And that's the way I am, right? And another problem with these international libertarians is, of course, they didn't believe in tariffs, right? And so when China was doing all these things to hurt American businesses, through, like, for example, the solar panels, they basically subsidized solar panel production and put American companies and even European companies out of business. And now China has a monopoly on solar panels, and the prices are going up and everything, right? They got rid of the competition. Oh, that's not right. We should be against monopolies that do that, and stealing company secrets and company technology, and forcing companies to give up their technology if they want to do business in China. That's totally wrong. International libertarians didn't care anything about that, but national libertarians should. Okay? I am a national libertarian. I'm not an international libertarian. Okay? America first, second, and third. That's my motto. The other thing I want to say about libertarianism is I got in quite a few fights again 4 years ago when I kind of told libertarians how stupid they were when they said the moment they win office, things are going to become libertarian. Boom, 100%. And you see these bumper stickers on cars that say taxation is theft. So these libertarians are going to end taxation when they get in office. Well, how does that work, right? How does that work when you stop when you stop taking taxes? How are you going to pay for government? Well, I guess what they're saying is they're going to fire almost everybody in government, right? And how is that going to work in the economy when all of a sudden 2 million or more federal workers are fired? What does that do to the economy? I think it caused the economy to crash. And even more so, um, talk about Social Security. So you're not going to collect Social Security taxes? And I would guess then you're not going to send out Social Security checks, right? So 85-year-old lady that's depending upon a Social Security check, no more. That's a terrible thing to do. People depended upon that. Yeah, they didn't even have a choice, right? So, you can't end Social Security and you can't end all of these different systems and policies and plans and everything else that the government is doing now that people are depending on. You just can't cancel them overnight. Some you can. We can do a lot of things with the military. We can pull our troops out of Europe and everywhere else. We can cut the standing army because we don't need an army anymore. We can fire a lot of people in the State Department, and we can fire a lot of people in the CIA and the FBI because they're bad people. There are a lot of things we can do immediately to reduce the size of government. Um, but a lot of things you really can't do immediately. For example, the healthcare system. That's going to be a big problem to try to wean ourselves from how the basically the government has taken over the medical industry, all of it, right, for the most part, and the education industry. Even though that should be done fairly quickly to turn it into a voucher system with private schools rather than government-run schools. Um, but I've always said, you know, you can't promise to end taxes once you get in office. I've always said that we've got to have a smart 10-year plan to go from where we are now to where we want to be, which is basically a pretty darn libertarian society, right? I've got a plan. It's in my voters pamphlet statement. A pretty good plan, a pretty comprehensive plan to get there, but it's not going to be done on day one. That would be a disaster. You don't want to hurt people. You don't want to hurt people because that conforms with your ideology. You don't want to do that. That's crazy. What I want to do is maximize happiness for people from now until the end of their lives. That's what I want to do. That's the goal. Libertarianism isn't the goal. The goal is to create the most happiness in society that you can possibly think of. Sustainable, right? That's what I want to do. And with that, that includes my third and last campaign statement. The election is only in 2 days. I think I put this video out way too late. I would be surprised if I win this election. But it would be nice if I got a lot of people to vote for me. So if you can, vote for me and maybe take this video and repost it, share it, whatever. Get out the word that people really need to vote me in office because I'm different and I'm innovative, and I think I really do have the American people in mind rather than maybe what the government wants or what corporations wants or what the media wants or of course what the super wealthy elite want. That's not me. Okay? So vote for Gary Dye, US Rep, District 3, Oregon.